you can't be lonely. You got to reach out. There's someone out there for you. It's just you're gonna have to check out some apps or something. I mean, this app too. This is way before Tinder and everything else. This was an app called Who's Here.
Wow.
And it was an app that was just a proximity app, and you could pretty much. So when my wife freaks out, I was talking to a bunch of women on there, and one was a Brazilian woman who was actually coming. She was much younger again. She was coming to stay in New York City, and we were going to meet up, and my wife jumped in the middle of that. So that's why there's this whole Brazilian, flip out.
That's interesting, yeah, because, I did mention my Brazilian history, and it's weird because it's almost like a glitch in a matrix. I mean, I'm starting to believe that we are simulations and that they just mess up stuff every once in a while. Let me give you this example because I wore this parody thing, which it's an island in Brazil that me and my ex-fiance went to, and I wore it symbolically because my ex is named Juliana, right? And she was like you said, she was like 4 years old. I'm kidding. That's a horrible joke. But she was like half my age, beautiful, gorgeous, super intelligent, could speak, multiple languages. Right now is killing it. I mean, she's doing so well in these organizations. She was always ahead of the game, always ahead of the curve, master's degree, the whole works. And I was floored because I was like, I'm never going to settle down. I met her, all that went out the window. I was like, I'm ready to settle down. So after it ended, the PTSD kicks in, blah, 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 blah. And I never get that closure. I never figure out where, because I was almost better off not knowing. You know that old phrase, is it better to have loved and lost than to have, loved at all? And if it weren't for her, I wouldn't believe that sort of love would exist. And I would have been so cynical. But now I'm like, it exists, so now I'm even more afraid to enter any old random relationship because I'm not going to get to that. And even if I get to that, I put everything into it. If it ends, what's the point? Better just to hang out with the disposable, for a couple of months and then move on to someone else. So anyway, fast forward to this. August 2nd was my ex's birthday, just a few days ago, right? And so I went out with hung out with my friend, and she's sort of like my counselor. I'm like her counselor. Really good friends, close friends, wonderful, beautiful person. Knows the whole story. And I met my ex the same time I met my best friend, who I was hanging out with on August 2nd. But just like you said, my ex-fiance got sort of in the way of. See, I don't want to say too much either, but it sort of interrupted things with my best friend, right? And so, even though she's my counselor now, we sort of met, and I wonder what would have happened if I didn't go off into the Brazilian route. My current best friend, there's history there as well. So I'm hanging out. There's a reason this is going somewhere. So I'm with my best friend, the same person, and it's my ex's birthday. And all of this is forming in my mind, and I'm like thinking about the closing. I don't have closure for this whole thing. So I meet this Brazilian woman, August 2nd, just 2 days ago, or 3 days ago, whenever. Beautiful, intelligent, younger than me, everything else, all that stuff. And so I'm like, this is crazy. In your accent, where are you from? Brazil. So we're talking more and more and more, find out what part. Sao Paulo, Sampa, which is where my ex is from. I'm going, that's so crazy. And in the course of this, obviously I got her name, and her name was Juliana.
No way.
Swear to God. And so I'm like, am I being punked? Am I being pranked? Like, I'm not a religious guy or anything like that, but I always comedically joke about coincidences, things that are just wacky, right? And so this was one of those things. Now here's the kicker. The kicker is I dated my ex for like 7 years, right? And went through all of this emotional drama after the impact of it. The reason she was out in the world again was because she was dating this guy for 7 months. And except his role was my ex's role, and her role was mine. Like, she was the one that was sort of dealing with the aftermath of this relationship and all these other things. And so what happened, and again, this is hot off the press. This is days old. So what's been happening is I've been sort of counseling her of how not to do what I did, how not to emotionally shut down. And I go, you know what this is? I said, this is a glitch in a matrix, jokingly, but I said, this is a glitch in a matrix. I'm here to sort of be there for you, but what you don't realize is you're giving me so much closure because I'm saying to you everything that I sort of didn't get to say to her. I call her fake Juliana, right? Fake Juliana, real Juliana. And I go, we're both here to, and I go, I don't know how this or why this or who this or when this, but this is a rare opportunity. I realize I'm getting a certain closure that I never had the chance to, and hopefully you're going to get a closure now that you wouldn't until who knows how long, because you can learn from me and you're helping me. So it's a beautiful sort of symmetrical glitch in the matrix, and those types of things happen enough where you start to go, what's really going on here? And then you tell me your story, I'm like, come on. It's like a force is bringing all of us together, like a bad episode of Lost.
Well, I say that to you often. That's a whole other thing. Like, and I try to explain, and this goes off into a tangent I don't want to go, but like meeting you and like the possibility of doing what we're doing is, I try to tell my wife, like, that she doesn't get it, but I'm like, this is like a 1 in a million meeting that you even have chemistry or somebody else would want to do this, blah, blah, blah. So let's just leave that there.
Right.
But as far as what you're just talking about, yeah, I went through this whole, when I went through my breakup, I went through The Secret. I read The Secret, and I started to try to like be more positive, but I went down the rabbit hole.
I did that too, yeah.
But I went down the rabbit hole, and people don't believe in The Secret. They're like, blah, blah, blah. But The Secret is almost like, to me,
karma,
positive, or karma 101.
Right.
It's like, this is the way you should. So I would take 80% of that book. Here's the way you should live your life besides wishing for stuff. You know what I'm saying? Or trying to attract stuff into your life. So here's 80% of this is the way you should probably live your life if you want to be a good person is The Secret. Because everybody looks at it as this joke book, whatever. So when you go inside The Secret, there's meditation. There's, maybe doing yoga, maybe, pushing harder into these other realms of, parallel, like you said, parallel universes and
the poor person's Scientology.
Well, I mean, I'm not. See,
I know. Keep in mind, I didn't actually read that book, but I started. There's a video. I'm not going to cut you off, but there's a video.
The movie. No, I have nowhere to go, but I'm saying so. Yep. I went deep into this, and at the same time, and again, I don't know if I met a scam, but when I was doing it, I met this woman that all of a sudden we were like so in sync, and then synchronicity started to happen. Dude, really weird shit started to happen in my life. I started to, and this is one of the crazier things is, I'm trying to put my, is I started to, I don't know why it started to happen, but I started to see the number 11 and 1111 all the time.
Oh man, well, that's a thing. I'm not lying. I swear to God, I went through that same thing too. And so I try to intellectualize everything. So I go, well, I'm obviously depressed.
Right. You start thinking.
I'm obviously, so I'm like looking
crazy. Right, I'm looking for stuff.
And there's things, obviously. There's patternicity. There's actual
synchronicity,
and you start seeing
people coming into your life,
and all that.
Into your life, right?
And there's even movies, right? There's even movies about like the Mandela effect, but the number 11. There's some really bad movies and some other movies coming out about people seeing the number 11 at the same time. So it's not just a one-off. It
was more 1111 than 11. But anyway, supposedly 1111 means transformation. That you're starting to go through transformation, that you're becoming a different person because you're trying to be more, like you say, karma, like you're trying to have a better karma, better energy, as we call it energy, right? So people believe in God. I don't believe in God. I believe in energy. You put out energy, and whatever energy you put out returns. Now, again, most people totally dismiss. They think it's a joke. Well, I believe in all of this stuff. I don't believe in the secret so much. I mean, I don't follow this book. I believe you're supposed to live your life a certain way, and I just don't do it. Like, for example, let's go back to being a vegan. Eating the food that I eat, all the food you eat has an energy. So you're putting that energy in your body. So if you're putting a tortured animal into your body, then you're putting bad energy. If you're putting preservatives, if you're putting anything produced by humans who are working under bad conditions, again, the food may have energy coming off it. So again, it can get really crazy, and you can start talk, and you sound like you're talking like a crazy person, but I completely get into all of it. Now, again, I faded out of it. I had to go take care of my dad who had Alzheimer's. I live with my mom who was fairly toxic. I was in a terrible place. Now, since I've moved to this new place, guess what happens 7 years later? I'm seeing 1111 everywhere again. Now, I only tell my wife this, and now I just told you this, but I don't tell anybody about this.
Right.
I keep it to myself because I don't want people to go, oh, you're crazy again. But it's just happening. Like, it just starts to happen again. So what does it mean? I don't know. I don't know if it means I'm, going through another growth stage or whatever. So, what was the point of all this? It was just like, I believe in energy over everything else. People think The Secret's a joke. I get it. There's so much more to it. The secret is like being grateful for your food, being grateful for the day, breathing. It's like there's simple concepts that you can take, deep breath.
I mean, you bring up so many interesting things. So many interesting things. I want to first just briefly mention some of this. And again, I'm not a numerologist, astrologist. I'm a quiet atheist, okay, or agnostic for people who think that sounds better. I don't say that with any sort of pride. I come from a strong religious background, being raised and everything else, but I question everything. And my point is, I don't believe in anything, but I do. I don't ignore anything that I witness and hear. And me not knowing the significance of anything or the source of anything doesn't change the fact that it's there, right? So I just believe a lot of things like...
When I read this, I'm just like, yes. Yeah. So I feel like a crazy person. But I read this, I'm like, you just put up on the screen here? I read this, I'm like, yes, this is totally me.
You have to look at the movies. There's some movies that talks about this phenomenon, right? And I'm not for or against it. I'm saying, here's what happened. And so, I would see 1111, just like Matt did. Let me read just a little bit of it. The positive characteristics, the 11 is the most intuitive of all numbers. It is instinctual, charismatic, dynamic, and capable when its sights are set on a concrete goal. The 11 is a number associated with faith and physics. Negative characteristics, the 11 can be anxious, shy, stressed, conflicted, and scattered. When focus is not applied toward a goal, the 11 can be extremely self-sabotaging. As a master number, the positive characteristics will turn into obstacles when not understood or used properly. So I had my little Scientology moment with this. That's a whole other topic I'd like to get into. But the last thing I want to mention is you talked about how eating food, talking about veganism, it's like negative energy. And this, again, self-promotion, but this reminds me of an interview I did back in 2016. I went to a DC Veg Fest. And again, Matt and I didn't synchronize any of this, the Brazilian story or anything. We intentionally don't talk to each other on the phone at all. And we don't really text. We just say, ready? So to keep it raw. But what you just said is directly related. You were talking about being vegan and sort of that purity. So I was interviewing this organization here in D.C. They were talking about this. It's sort of a meditation, sort of quasi-religious, whatever you want to call it. and they speak on this. So I'm going to hopefully switch this and see if I can get the audio just to play a minute of this to hear this individual speak on this. Here we have one of the more unique ones.
I want to mention that when we are buying a food, some food, we look for the ingredients, what the ingredients it has, but we forget there's one more important ingredient, and that's our thoughts. In what consciousness am I eating? Am I eating hurriedly? Am I watching some negative news and eating it? Because that affects the way I think. But if I'm taking 10 minutes time off while I'm eating, where I'm thinking or listening to something positive, it helps me for next 3-4 hours to be more calm and peaceful. Yeah.
So it's more about the respect for your environment.
It helps me.
There we go. I should be back, but
yeah, I don't know if it was double play. I don't know if I was screwing you up because I was playing it on my side.
No. You're fine. You're fine. That's me really getting used to these things. But my point is, it's sort of this is that there's a difference between how people apply what they see and hear to sort of the answers of what these things mean. Like I would even argue, if you think about like the Big Bang, if I was a super religious person, I could say, and I was a little more open to certain things, I could easily say, well, God did the Big Bang. God snapped his finger like Thanos in Infinity. Well, I shouldn't say anything. Spoiler alert. And then boom, Big Bang, right? There really doesn't have to be a conflict in your belief. My point is how you take data and everything else and process it is completely open to sometimes opinion and interpretation, and needs to be backed up by certain things. For me, though, I like science, I like facts, I like those types of things, and to inform me rather than just go, someone told me this. But again, whatever someone's belief, you can apply these things to different phenomenon, the same phenomenon, without arguing about it. And that sort of gets into Democrats and Republicans and everything else. You can take this data and then you can go, well, I'm for this and I'm for this. But just if you focus more on the data and go, can we agree that this sort of happened? And then we can have a different opinion on how and why. To me, that's sort of a path forward in politics, in everything, in relationships. Agree on the data. Don't argue about wants and needs and desires. Have them, but have your base foundation. And if we can't get beyond that, then we're always going to be in this sort of cycle of I'm not this and you're for this, which is not the way I think we should go.
I think I just want to step back into, again, the 11/11 phenomenon. Reading that just like brings me back, and like again, so I've moved. I'm in a better space. My dad passed. My mother is now out of my life. I'm in a beautiful home. I am holding my beautiful dog. I'm seeing 11/11. So I don't know if I'm going through another transformation. I mean, this dog is in my life now, and it definitely keeps me centered. When you do stand-up comedy, you pretty much are looking for, like, for me, looking for this negative emotion all the time because that's what you sell on stage, because every time you go up and you do a bit that's, like, negative and you can sell it and you can bring that emotion back, you can sell the bit. And that's what I stepped into. So if I went back to stand-up, I would really like to try to go in a different direction, in a more positive direction. I just don't know if I can write comedy I don't know, like I said, just the whole DMV thing. I mean, I'd have to do that voice that I was doing. I'd have to make it some way positive, in some way. How did I keep myself positive in that really negative situation? How did I, I've got to find a new direction to do stand-up, because when I did stand-up, and I'm not Robin Williams, but when I was at the Hot Comedy Club and I was doing 7 shows a night, 6 nights a week, there's definitely highs and highs, and when you leave, there's lows and lows, and you can see, wow, this could amplify. If you got more famous and you got more money and you got more attention, the highs might get even higher, and the lows might get even lower, and then you'd have to self-medicate in some way. So it definitely was worrisome. But I would say that most of my life, and I don't know who to blame this on, but I definitely know that I was negative, and I could get lost in the negative, and I could elaborate on the negative, and I could and my brain could really work on the negative and bring more, scenarios that you wouldn't even believe. You'd just be sitting there, thinking about the negative. So that's why when The Secret came in, and I realized, like, wow, I don't, because I was like, prayer before food, so stupid. Why would you do that? Well, if you just sort of take away, it's not prayer. You're just having a positive thought about having this meal and thanking whatever brought this meal to you. You're not praying so much to a God. You're just saying, oh, I'm grateful and thankful for this meal and whoever prepared it and however it arrived here, and now I'm going to enjoy it. Just like that guy in the video said, you're trying to get yourself in a state of appreciation while you eat this food rather than watching horrible news or being in a horrible, and I people always say, oh gosh, well, what about if you're in prison, or what if you have cancer? Well, my suggestion would be there is to meditate and to get into the most positive state you can be wherever you are. I obviously don't think it's the answer. You're not gonna secret your way out of prison. You're not gonna secret your way out of cancer. But there are better ways to cope with whatever you're coping with. So again, a lot of people think that The Secret is this unbelievable joke. And I'm not saying it's humorous to some, but I think there's so much good in that book. If you picked it up and said, oh, I'm going to go deeper into this. This seems a little superficial. I'm going to go deeper. Because it is, like you said, I never thought of karma. Well, I always said it's positive psychology 101. But karma 101 is probably shorter and maybe easier for people to understand.
Yeah, I mean, when you talk about it, again, these are different, I don't want to say just interpretations or opinions, but different ways we process things. Like I know a lot of people who aren't religious at all, and yet they're supportive of my mind just went blank. Not Kama Sutra, but
is your mind always on sex?
No. I take a break and I eat. So. Unless it's like watching 9.5 Weeks, and then I'm actually doing both at the same time. In any case, no, but it's not really a religion, but Buddhism? Yeah.
Buddhism is a religion?
No.
Yes.
Wait, what is it? Is it Buddhism? I think that's it. It's something so basic. My mind just went dead. But they follow those. They're not really traditional religion. It's not a traditional religion, if you want to call it that. It's more of a way of living positively, right? And so people may use that, or they might use karma or whatever, but we all have our different pathways to this. To me, it's almost like fourth dimensional, right? I'm not going to get into that. I'm not going to get into quantum mechanics, but
that's what I'm saying. If you're a science guy, if you are science-based, and I say to you, energy attracts energy, you should be like, yeah, I get it. And that should be the end of the conversation. Like if you're, because I'm more of a science guy. We're similar in many ways, but I'm more of a science guy. Everything has to be, give me the scientific basis of what you're talking about. So if you're a science guy, I just say energy attracts energy. And if you go into the definition of energy, I can't do it now, but it's basically what, again, The Secret is based around. I don't want to do this. I don't want to.
I know.
Because again,
I
I'll
know.
be preaching. If I do the definition of energy, it'll sound like I'm preaching this book. So I'm not going to. But again, the Secret to me is more science based, and basically it says the energy you put out is the energy you'll attract, and it's a very simple concept. So again, if you're science, people always ask me, "Are you religious?" I'm like, "No, I'm more science based." So do you believe in God? No, I believe in good. I believe in good energy. If you put good energy out, good energy is going to come back. That it's a very simple scientific concept.
Yeah, I
So-
mean, there's this movie that I watched. I'm putting it up now. What the bleep do we know? Years ago, let's say 10 years ago or 15 years ago, and it, again, I'm not afraid, but I'm hesitant to talk about these things because I'm not like a nut, okay? But I do. Yeah, well, you're a nut, but I appreciate I appreciate collecting information and then extrapolating from that, right? Rather than just saying something is all stupid. And like I said, to me, this is sort of commenting on what you were talking about, which is energy versus energy. And someone might say karma. Someone might say The Secret. Someone might say, what the bleep do we know? But from a science-based guy, I have real support for these types of things. Quantum mechanics, okay? Quantum mechanics, for people who don't know, and I think a lot of people know now, it's magic, okay? Let's just talk it down. It's scientifically proven magic. Something that Einstein was talking about, he was saying it's a spooky phenomenon. That's how Einstein called it. He didn't say it was fake. He was like, I don't understand this. And there's so much I could talk about that. But things on these sort of almost fourth dimensional planes of matter being able to go faster than the speed of light, which it shouldn't, or even gravity, trying to come up with the theory of everything, connecting gravity with the theory of relativity. All of these fourth dimensional things, as I call it, that's not what they call it, appear in that sort of realm, and where quantum mechanics does these strange things. To me, I see this in my life, and again, I'm not a nut. Okay, I'm just saying that old phrase, when you give someone $5, you get $10 back. I've done that. I've done that just like here, not thinking I'm ever going to get this thing back, and somehow I'll find $20 on the ground, right? And when I see stuff like that, I go, okay, that could be a coincidence. But my higher me goes, a lot of coincidences are probably somehow connected to this energy. And when I say that, it sounds crazy, but when you look into the science of quantum mechanics, you start opening things up, like parallel universes, multiverses, everything else. You start seeing these weird things where an atom that is sitting here, in DC, and an atom that is in a universe, and you split that atom in DC, that atom in the universe immediately splits too. They're somehow magically connected, scientifically verifiable. They're somehow connected, but if they're somehow sending the information, it's going faster than the speed of light. If they're somehow connected by some invisible bond, no matter how many miles away they are, that's unimaginable unless you go, F it. There's sort of like a fourth dimensional connection that we don't understand, but it's there. And this is not kooky science. This is not kooky magic. Someone's going to call it magic. Someone's going to call it numerology. Someone's going to call it whatever. And they could be completely right, completely wrong, or get 10% right, 80% right. But I think a lot of this sort of speaks to that layer. And you talk about even witches. I know several people who are like, I'm a witch. And they're not flying around on broomsticks, but they're like, I think of positive thoughts. I do what I think bring good energy into and you go, all these people are talking about the same thing to varying different degrees that could be measurable and scientifically real.
Well, it's fucking Star Wars, first of all. I mean, that's basically, everybody who likes Star Wars, that's basically The Secret, except you're actually moving shit with your mind. You become so you understand that if you use your brain, so there's a dark side, and that's the other thing that's fascinating about The Secret and it'd be positive energy. Well, it works on the dark side too. If you are a fucking vicious, mean, selfish person, there's a good chance you can be highly successful. So it doesn't matter what energy you choose, you're going to be. I'd actually believe the dark side is probably easier for success than it is the lighter side. So again, if people ever have issue, I would just say, look, Star Wars. If you don't get it, if you fucking like Star Wars, then that's basically, the secret, or that's positive energy, or that's, that's, I hate to tell you that's what it is. And it's because some people think, oh, you should just think, you think things into existence, whatever. Well, you can also do it on the dark side. You can be very, very successful using dark energy. I actually think it's much easier to do via the dark side than the light side. And
it's funny how I'm bringing up on screen how the Force was described. Okay, and out of context, we sound like complete nuts, but
absolutely, no doubt about it. Yes, I agree.
But again, I'm not trying to speak to nuts. I'm trying to speak to that tiny portion of humanity that has critical thought and actually listens. I just offended everybody, but
except for me, because I wasn't really listening.
Yeah,
I was reading this. I'm reading what you brought up on the screen.
Yeah, and again, this speaks directly. You mentioned the Force, and this speaks directly to what you're saying. Listen, this is from Forbes, from the article "Star Wars: The Last Jedi Finally Explains the Force," and in the New Hope, before we get to the Last Jedi, he says, Obi-Wan Kenobi says, "The Force is what gives a Jedi his power. It's an energy field created by all living things. It surrounds us and penetrates us. It binds the galaxy together." So that was vague as it breaks down, but when we get to the Last Jedi, I guess, it says, Obi-Wan's vagueness leaves his words open to interpretation by us, the audience. That might be deliberate, as Star Wars creator George Lucas originally intended, this is what you just said, for the Force to be a spiritual phenomenon, to be simply mystical or magical. We could stop there, but not only is that deeply unsatisfying, it's contradicted by the phrase energy field, which implies a scientific explanation. That's exactly what we're talking about. And then, of course, it gets into what is said in other incarnations. I don't want to go all into it, but I do want to say what it says in The Last Jedi and give everybody the opportunity to read this on their own. But what it says in The Last Jedi is, it's the energy between all things, a tension, a balance that binds the universe together. The islands, birds, death, and decay that feeds new life. Warm, cold, peace, violence. And then it goes in deeper from Einstein's equation, E equals mc squared. I can just go on. My point is, we weren't aware of this article prior, so we're not thinking crazy thoughts. This is something that and it's hinting at George Lucas thought about in creating this fictional story to sort of explain some things, and a lot of people have thought about, and people writing about the Force and breaking it down and connecting it to science and the theory of relativity. It's all there. And I think people need to not be afraid to think, which is much different than answering things that you don't know, but to think about the things you don't know and try to put them in a bigger construct.
And again, if I can make it political, because well, it goes back to
everything.
It goes back to how we met and what we felt, right? So if we want to go back to Bernie Sanders, Trump, we knew that there was an energy behind Trump. We felt it's fucking like Star Wars,
right?
We felt the force of Trump. We knew a very good chance that he was going to be elected. We just felt that we knew, and then Bernie was the light side, and we felt the energy when you were in those circles, when you were with people who are truly Bernie supporters. The energy was just pure. There wasn't no right
or wrong. It was like you said. It was a pure and sort of.
Well, there was no disturbance. There was no disturbance. There was nothing that I had ever experienced before where I could just go,
look, there's disturbance in the Force.
But just like you would just look at the other person and be like, yeah,
right,
yeah, me too. Yeah, me too. It's a
Yeah.
little expression, but like
Right.
I'm with you. I'm right on board. I probably think 99% the way you do, which is but we also knew people are not looking at the dark side. They don't understand the power of that dark side. Everybody's like, oh no, it can never happen. I'm like, why couldn't it? It's the power. Go watch Star Wars. How do you not see Darth Vader was actually in control and destroying the whole universe? How do you not see that we're in big trouble? And that if we don't team together, if we don't get together, we're doomed. We're all doomed. And that's exactly what happened. And I feel like right now, this is a scene out of Star Wars. We're like broadcasting out of,
Yeah.
caves and stuff, and trying to mount the rebellion again. And it really doesn't look like we have any shot unless some Jedi comes out.
Well, in
I should wear a cloak. I should wear a cloak like I should wear my Luke Skywalker outfit while I do this broadcast.
But
I look just like him. I got the long beard. I'm frazzled. I'm probably not believing anymore that it's going to happen. We should have never done. I haven't seen the ending of The Last Jedi, so I have to watch the rest to understand. But obviously, Luke was no longer believing in the Force, and then a lot of drama there.
Well, you got to see it. I won't.
Yeah, don't
spoil
ruin it. I got to finish the last 30 minutes or something like that, so I know what the hell I'm talking about with this Star Wars comparison.
Yeah, but Darth Vader is the father.